Hey, and we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media. We are in the halls, if you will, of Halitosis Hall. We're here with one of our favorite speakers, representatives, civic leaders, role models, as we just found out, with a young lady, a young woman who's a page, who reached out to Representative Leonela Felix and expressed her admiration. Let me ask you to come a little closer. People are babbling out here in the hall.
Always loud.
But you know, mixed emotions tonight. If you are a spectator like me, it was an extremely challenging evening, yet a lot of points were made, a lot of power presented by the minority caucus as well as a number of their allies in speaking to tabling effectively the LEOBOR legislation until they can get it right, or they can really, editorializing here, do the right thing, which is just to end it. It's been a long year. You've been out front fighting for this. Even today, we were reported about another situation in Pawtucket. We'll go into that some other night, where you've got excessive use of force, allegedly by Pawtucket police, and yet here we go again. So, but the most important thing, what are your thoughts? What are your plans on this? Talk to us.
No, the vote's not surprising in terms of what we saw today and the folks.
No.
Definitely not surprising. Disappointed, of course, because it's something that you would think common sense would prevail. We all saw the murder of George Floyd. We all saw him calling for his mom when he was being nailed on, and he was ultimately killed. So we all saw it on TV. Yet today, what the House of Representatives said was that an action like that, it's okay to not fire the officer immediately. Whereas in Minneapolis, they said in one day they fired him. We decided to stand just like in New York and just leave it as is and allow an officer to keep his job. And it's disappointing.
The central point that appears to be missing by, let's just call it Establishment General Assembly, is that we are one of just 13 states in the nation that even afford this extra legal protection. So somehow states that we're surrounded by have managed to survive, and quite frankly, anecdotally, a lower case of officer-involved shootings and officer-involved violence, and yet somehow there's just this death grip that they have to insist on maintaining this heinous law. What has to happen before someone understands that there should be no extra legal protection for any protected class?
What needs to happen is, I think, unfortunately for some folks, it's going to have to be personal experience. And I say that, like saying in terms of, I wish it wouldn't happen, but the reality is that some folks, it doesn't matter how many personal stories you give them, how many anecdotes you give them, they will never understand that this is what needs to happen. We need to get rid of it to be able to get rid of those bad apples, as they call it, to do this. But what really needs to happen is that we need new legislators to join this room and to be able to advocate for the issues that we care about. We are in the minority in terms of progressive legislators. And even so, you saw it today with in terms of the vote. What we need is new leadership. What we need is new blood to come into the House and that understands these issues, that wants to work on these issues and reform. But unless people stand up and actually run for office, we're not going to get there.
My first observation would be, as folks know, the Coalition Radio is primarily a libertarian organization. I'm an aggressive libertarian. So I would challenge folks who, place themselves under the mantle of liberty to understand that there's nothing libertarian, there's nothing patriotic, there's nothing freedom-oriented, there is nothing legitimate, there is nothing other than adherence to a power structure that exists in the LEOBOR legislation. Mm-hmm. So from my observation, it's not just a progressive, although progressives are carrying the torch for this mm-hmm. in the General Assembly. It's actually a simple act of freedom.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You spoke about elections. Now, earlier this afternoon, I broached this subject. This is politics, and this is raw, hardball politics, and that's what we saw tonight mm-hmm. when a variety of amendments were tabled without a proper vote. Because ultimately, a vote speaks to the electorate as to where folks really stand.
Correct.
Some would call that a cowardly move. How do you feel about that amendment being tabled?
I totally agree with your statement. It was a cowardly move, and it was a move they did not want to be on the record in terms of voting against this amendment. And that is the thing. The reason that they tabled it is that they were scared to be on the record. But guess what? We still got them on the record in terms of how they vote. They tabled the amendment, and they tabled the holding of the bill, and also voted for the bill. So we got them on the record regardless. And I think that's what the community did. What they did in tabling this particular amendment, not only that, is that they silenced the communities that we represent in terms of their needs and what they need in terms of the legislation and what to do. So again, all they did was, the reason that they did this is because they were running scared. They did not want to get their votes on record. But again, anybody can go into the legislature's website and see how folks voted, whether to support the bill or not support the bill, and vote accordingly.
Will this be an election issue coming up?
I believe so. I believe so. A lot of our community members have been calling to either repeal or significantly amend this bill. They did neither of those things. They continue to say that this bill offers transparency. This bill was made in collaboration. It was not. This bill was made in collaboration with a certain number of people who benefited and decided how this legislation would go. But our community's voices, they couldn't even answer the simple question, who was at that table from the community? That's because no one from the community was on the table. And I think this issue is particularly important for our communities, and they will vote accordingly.
There were certain supporters in the House who spoke to how easily it would be to revisit this legislation in a year or two. Yet it took decades to even get to the point where any level of reform bill was heard. Do you worry that this will be essentially the last we'll hear about LEOBOR if the establishment has its way?
Absolutely not. We're already preparing a bill for next year that we're going to bring to the floor. And we're not giving up. We are not giving up. They said that we were going to continue working on it. We're going to hold their feet to the fire. They said we can continue to make revisions and make it better. Okay, we're going to bring those bills to the table and see if that is true, and see how much of that is their appetite to actually reform or to actually do something good. So we'll see. The next session will let us know. And
you are running for re-election?
Yes.
And so we'll see you out on the campaign trail talking about this and other issues.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Thanks. Representative Leonela Felix, she of District 61 of the great city of Pawtucket, again advocating for community in a manner, well, in conjunction with a number of colleagues that hasn't been seen in a very, very long time. I know the night didn't end the way you wanted, but congratulations on the effort, and people will hear from you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you for being here.